Howdy, my name is John Oliver. Today is July 18th, 2014. It's 15 minutes after 7 p.m. I'm in the student dining commons at El Centro Community College, downtown Dallas. The title of this is Origins, or it relates to the origins for our stewardship community. It's one important thread, like a tributary to the Amazon River, and it starts with water. I was in high school in 71. I went to Georgia Tech for 3 years. I did not finish there. After I dropped out of college, I went to work at a health food store, and there I learned a lot about the importance of water, vital for health. Of course, that's known and normal now, but then it was strange and weird. I mean, it was controversial whether vitamin C could help with respiration or vitamin E could help with your skin. Very controversial. Water was drinking water. Why do we have tap water? Why you would do something like that? And why is water of any significance? It was, and I became convinced the importance of water. I started to make it a priority to buy distilled water from a grocery store and haul it home and drink that a lot. And when I have bottled water like that, I drink about twice as much as tap water. I feel better. Since the 70s, way before it became popular and known, and Ozark and everybody else, since all these other companies started to be big with it. So when I came across articles about people not having water around the world, particularly developing countries like India and Africa. Africa is not a country, but all the countries in Africa, Sierra and whatever, bothered me very, very, very deeply, and depressed and discouraged. And then there was magazine articles and TV documentaries and blah, blah, blah about that. And then I came across people that were drilling wells and trying to make an improvement. And so I started to notice YouTube videos about that. Now I would bookmark those videos and go, oh, wow, this is so cool. Somebody's making a difference. My cell phone's down there. Trying to keep an eye on the time. I really have to put the time up here so I have to look down, shouldn't I? That's a good idea. Just look across and looking down. What was I saying? So water. And so I worked at a help desk, a student computer lab at seminary for 12 years, and I come across these people, and typically they were NGOs, nonprofit organizations that were doing that, drilling wells all around the world, and I bookmarked them. It was just refreshing, and typically it was like, okay, looky what we did, send some more money, we'll do it again. You know, happy people jumping up and down, pumping wells, and neat. And then there's this big thing later on came out, it's called charity water, which is a guy went big time promoter, did a marvelous work with getting water. So that was just neat. One of my little things that I would do to make a break at work, and you also feel encouraged, feel depressed and discouraged about humans not having water. Then I learned that people would walk a long distance to get water. No, it's scarce, but you had to walk a long distance to get bad water. And then besides getting the water, they had to get firewood. So they walk a long distance, children and women typically would, men would work in the fields to get the water. And then I learned of this thing called rocket stove. So they come and get the wood, they put it in their huts, so these grass huts, mud huts, whatever, and put like an open fire, so like a campfire. So you put the wood in there put a pot on these stones, and then and be smoky. The smoke would go up in the hut, and it would get in their eyes, get the respiration, and they had little children there, so it hurt their eyes to respiration. And then some engineer types came over there from the Americas and said, there's going to be a better way. And they came across a thing called rocket stoves. So if you look on YouTube, later on I'll have links to all this, rocket stoves. And so rocket stove is kind of like you use bricks or adobe, or you use metal, but it's a way to create so that it's very energy efficient. So you use a lot less wood, have a lot less smoke, and so it's the same heat to boil the water to cook the rice or the potatoes or the vegetables or the fish or whatever they're cooking. I said, wow, cool. So I went from water to rocket stoves. I said, like rocket stoves, and I said, oh, there's this solar ovens. Wow, even better. You don't have to walk, you just use all different kinds of versions of. So I started branching out from just water to stoves. Then came across I was bookmarking, so that was kind of my way to take a break. Was to look for those kinds of things, and I would go from depressed and discouraged and bored, feel hopeful for people around the world, and so that was a blessing for me. And then I came across a group. I'll do theirs later. Instead of just doing water and food, they also did sanitation, and they did education, and they did income. So they came to a village, and they say, look, village, we're going to work with you for 2 years, and we're going to find a group of people in America or Canada work with you for 2 years to support you, and we use Skype video, so your group and their group will interact, and they'll send you lots of money, and it'll change you forever, and then in 2 years, relationship's over with, you're on your own. That was, wow, that was so cool. Came across thing that came across one that fascinating was called Universal Nutsheller. And there's a guy, again, I'll show links to describe this too. But in some parts of the world, the staple is not rice, it's not potatoes, it's not wheat, it's not barley, it's peanuts. And the peanuts they have there are kind of a paper shell peanuts. They're a little bit round things, and they're very, very hard. And the women have to break them with their hands. It takes a long, long time. This guy created a way to use like a coffee grinder kind of a thing, and they can have 50 times as fast. Very simple thing. And went, wow, nutsheller. Wow. So I started to get the idea about what's later called appropriate technology. Devices that there are no computers, no electricity, hand cranked. Then I came across the thing. What really changed my life was a bicycle shop in Guatemala that took bicycle parts and made it into motors, and that they could their typical crop in Guatemala is corn. Pull the corn kernels off of the corn ears, or turn the corn kernels into corn meal, or could sharpen machetes because you're using bicycle wheels and chains, or make a pump to pump water out of pump water. And what was neat about that one thing that totally changed my life was, instead of just going looky at our thing, what they did was they shared the plans. They showed the do-it-yourself. They showed the blueprints. They showed the user manual in very simple, basic language. Very basic tools, very basic. I went, oh, wow, if they can do that, I can do that. Because I had seen all these other possibilities, but they're all kind of like, yeah, wow. But I thought, if you can share plans online, collect, organize, document, index, and share plans online, and put them onto devices. I worked in a computer lab, so we were selling DVDs and flash drives and CDs and SD cards. If you can put in umpteen gigabytes for cheap, you can share those plans, those blueprints around the world. You change lives forever. Because all it needs is a good idea, well documented, well described. And so then I lost 2 nights sleep thinking on that. Sometimes I go deeply into those 2 nights, sleepless nights. But they were, I thought, okay, what's the deal? Well, I already knew I was getting into nutshelling, and there's so many other things, the engineering kinds of things. And so I thought about the Amish, who don't use electricity, and the Mennonites, and the American Indians before the Industrial Revolution, before electricity, before Graham Bell and Edison, those guys. How they do farming? How they do farming in the pioneering days, or in Europe before electricity? How can we learn that and teach that using PDF files and blueprints and audio, because there must be illiterate MP3 files. And so, and who got to work with? So I thought of Aggies, Texas A&M Aggies, because there's lots of engineers there, but also want to teach engineering. So I want educators, so teachers, educators, and also I want to teach entrepreneurialism, teach business. So business, those majors. So for a long time, that's what I was going to do. I was going to just, if I could go there in that summer, and then I got interrupted, which is a whole other story, how I left the seminary months before I had planned to leave there, so I did not go. But again, I knew that if they can share plans, I can share plans. And they were just going, here, looky, download it, here's PDF files, go for it. I thought, okay, well, that's 6 PDF files, that's great if you want to do those 8 things, but what 80 about 800? You know, what other kinds of practical things can we put into besides that, another tributary that I'll go into much later is Heifer International, and they you maybe seen those Christian catalogs where they get people to sponsor. America's a sponsor. Instead of giving Aunt Susie another, gizmo for Christmas, or Aunt Joe another tie, why don't you give them a sponsor, some chickens or ducks or geese or a cow or something like that, or heifer. And so they train people overseas to raise domestic livestock and provide them with the initial stock, which is good. It's a marvelous work. They've been running hundreds and hundreds of catalogs for years and years. I'm totally for them. And Samaritan's Purse does a similar work. They're Christian-based. Samaritan's Purse has been, Heifer International is not. But just teaching about animal husbandry, about because goats and chickens and ducks and are going to have troubles, and how can you teach basic animal husbandry and basic agriculture, like Peace Corps kinds of lessons, besides the blueprints. How can we teach that? And teach composting, and teach recycling, and teach just teach rudimentary things, storing crops, so that the bugs and the rodents and the dogs and the crows and the whatever don't get at them. So how were they stored? How did the Incas and the Aztecs and the Navajos, and how they store, how they dry? The Eskimos, how they got the salmons, they smoked the salmon. So how do you smoke salmon? How you salt salmon? I don't know, but we can learn it and teach it. And then how you distribute it to libraries. I'll have a whole long deal about libraries. So the distribution point is libraries, because people that need it the most can afford it the least. Can't sell it to them, but they can borrow it. If they borrow it and use it, they'll be able to buy it later, and they'll be able to help others, because they'll prosper, because they'll know how to raise more chickens and have more eggs and have more yams and more less smoke, and they'll understand. Besides that, they'll understand midwifery and breastfeeding, and they'll understand first aid, and they'll understand preventable diseases. Just education. Education is the great lever. I'll take a whole big unit about the importance of education, rudimentary education. I'll stop there, but that's the origin story. That's the origin story, and that's all for now. Thank you very much.